I think that sobriety gave me clarity, but the biggest thing it gave me was confidence. And when you believe in yourself and when you believe in your ability to take control of your life and build your life with intention, nothing can stop you. You will figure it out.
Hey there, fellow rebels. Welcome to #ActuallyICan, the podcast where we say a hearty hell yes to designing life on our own terms. I'm Katie Ripp, a lifestyle coach, business mentor, and serial entrepreneur, here to guide you through the wild ride of defying what society expects of us and embracing our authenticity. On this show, we dive deep into taboo topics like death, money, spirituality, entrepreneurship, unapologetic self-care, and personal development, all while swearing and laughing along the way. Expect down and dirty conversations, plenty of humor, and a whole lot of exploration, leaving you feeling empowered to be your truest self. Whether you're craving a good laugh, seeking unconventional self-care tips, or simply looking for some camaraderie, you've come to the right place. We only get this one short life, so buckle up and let's design yours on our own terms. Ready to dive in? Let's go. We are already recording because every time I do these podcasts, I feel like I do 15 minutes of the intro and here we go and all of this stuff. And that's all where all the important shit is.
All the juicy shit happens.
Shut up. This is so exciting for me.
I'm excited to meet you. Finally, connected in real life.
How long has it been? Well, for me, I think I've been following you for 4 years. How long have you been sober?
4.5 years.
I have been following you for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Is that crazy or what?
That's wild. And it's so crazy that I just, when I first got sober, I started just doing the sober hashtags on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And the number of people that has connected me with has just been really insane blessing in my life.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I think I just had, do you know Danielle DeGrande?
No, I don't.
She's the sober rebel. That's what she kind of goes by. And she's got a huge Facebook group. But I just had her on and I've only met her through Instagram. And she's in some of my, I've coached her. I've had some other, the connection is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I got on a call last week with a girl who is significantly younger than me. She's in her late 20s, I think. But she's a business coach and she found me years ago, started following my sobriety journey. She quit drinking. And so now as I'm I'm a business coach too, but I'm trying to get out of my own way. Right.
Yeah, well, aren't we all?
So I got on the call with her and it was just all these little connections. It's just wild.
Not everybody loves social media. I am a stickler about going through my social media and really being very intentional about my social media. So I love it. I've got sunrises and sunsets and all these inspirational people and really cool quotes and whatever. But I am religious about going through and unfollowing people.
Curating that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. It will be what you make it. So if you feed into and watch this drama-filled negative stuff,
it's
going to keep feeding you those things.
Yeah.
So you have to be intentional about it. Mine is full of dogs and dog grooming videos. That's my ASMR. I just zone out and watch these dogs in their transformations. And then empowered women and midlife women. And yeah, it's totally what you make it.
I love that word you use, that curated. I do have a curated feed. That's exactly what I have. And so when I scroll on it, I get super excited and really inspired. And I mean, I don't really have a comparison issue because I just there's nobody out there I really compare myself to. I just want to be better. And that's what Instagram makes me. I don't know.
There you go.
To say it. And
it's a tool, right?
I get to meet people like you. This is so amazing to me. I am so honored you're here, really. I remember exactly where I was sitting when I found you, which is so fascinating to me. I was, we owned a wine bar and I was sitting upstairs in my wine bar at a table that I think I was working or getting ready for an event or something. And I'm pretty sure I had a bottle of wine in front of me. And I think we've shared like a lot of the same story, right? I've had 1,000 day ones. I started over 100 different ways, 100 different times, 1,000 different days. And like, I just related to you and I was like, God, could I ever be that brave to be out here and be doing that? And yeah, so I'd love to, well, first of all, it's a pleasure and an honor to meet you. I just find you to be so inspirational and to watch your journey and be a business owner, right? Like a legit real-time business owner. And you were that before you got sober, right? And so I think we also parallel that life.
For sure.
And we've talked a little bit about, back and forth on Instagram. Just so everybody knows, this is the first time that Shonna and I have actually
never talked.
I've never talked. I've heard your voice, but like we've never talked. This is so awesome. So, we've gone back and forth, or I've watched a lot of your progression, but also when you were so gracious to be on our podcast, you filled out a little questionnaire about how much your bottom line has changed and how your like business life has changed. And I relate to that so much. And it's so hard to qualify that and quantify it to other people because it was such a gradual thing for me. I mean, if I go back to the day I got sober, I mean, like I have the tracking, like the reports from the day I got sober until now. Right. And for me, it wasn't necessarily just the sobriety part. Sobriety was on the top for me. And the rest of it was just a trickle down effect. I don't know how else to explain it, but I think we relate to that in each other's lives. And so I would love you to just spill it. Tell me your story. Tell me where you are, what you're doing. My intention for this podcast is to just share stories like this, sort of rip the shame off, rip the anxiety off of it, talk about alcohol. Like, I don't think that, I think the world is changing anyway. And I love that so much, but I would just love to hear your story and spill it about all the things that sobriety did for you. But also, as we get further away from sobriety, it becomes less and less about not drinking and more about self-care and really being honest with ourselves and really being authentic. So I'm just going to give you the green light to go.
Okay. Well, I could go in a million different directions, so I'm going to try to keep it on track and not have like squirrel brain all over the place.
Okay. I think all listeners are squirrel brain too, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think that's part of why I'm a great entrepreneur, right? I never had a lack of ideas and things to say. But really, I look at 2019 was my turning point. I had always been a big drinker. I, started drinking when I was 15 years old, and I grew up in Topeka, Kansas, which is like the capital of Kansas. And, but 100,000 people. So not a small town, but not a big city by any means either. And that's what you did in high school, was you went to football games and basketball games, and you went to parties and you drank. And so I was introduced to alcohol at a very young age and realized like, oh, this makes me a totally different person. And when you're 15, who doesn't want to be a different person, right? Like, I was so shy, had always been, I didn't know what an introvert was then, but very much an introvert and just really incredibly shy. And so when I took my first few drinks of alcohol and I realized that like it let me be who I wanted, all the girls that I admired, all the girls that I wanted to be were super bubbly, outgoing, had tons of friends. And I'm over here cowering in the corner all the time, afraid to talk to people, right? So it let me be that person. And of course, I'm now 30 years removed from that moment, 32 years removed from that moment. And I can say now that's where it began. But back then, hey, this is just what you do. It's a party, right?
Are you 47?
I am 47. I turned 47 in March.
Oh,
yeah.
You look like you're about 25.
Oh, well, thank you.
Wow.
I'm working on it.
Aging backwards.
Yeah. I look at old pictures and I'm like, holy mackerel, I cannot believe that was
But me. Oh my God, I did not think, I'm going to be 46 in October. And so it's an eye-opening age.
Midlife is wild.
Yeah, it's an
It's a
eye-opening
wild time.
for sure. I actually love it. This
I
season
do
of
too.
life is lovely for me. I feel more in my own skin and own body and feel very good. So, but midlife is crazy. So I'm
It
sorry to
is.
interrupt. I
No,
just
that's totally fine.
looking at you right now. I'm like, holy shit, I want to look like that at
Oh,
47,
stop.
which is a
Thank
year
you.
away from me.
So, that was the beginning for me. And then fast forward, like my early 20s, I moved to Las Vegas, party capital of the
The
world.
world.
Right. So it was just a thing like you went out at 10 p.m., you took your sunglasses with you because you knew you weren't going home until after the sun came up. And that was just, but in my early 20s, I could recover from those evenings much easier.
Much different story these days.
Yeah. In my late 20s, so I had moved back to Kansas City and I met my husband and he had 3 children. And as a girl who never wanted kids, but fell in love with the man, it was an insane time for me. I'm also an only child. So, like, I don't have a lot of exposure to kids. And so I was always the youngest, like, cousin, just never really been around kids. And so falling in love with a man who had 3 children and then getting married when I was 30, they came to live with us full time about a year and a half after we got married.
How old were they at the time?
8, 11, and 13.
Oh, at 30 years old.
Yeah. So it was really interesting. And today, again, very far removed from that, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Like my stepkids are everything to me.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't have coping mechanisms. I went from single, fun-loving gal to full-time mom of 3 within 3 years. And so I didn't know how to be those things. And I had a corporate job, worked, 45 hours a week. And that was just the expectation at that job. You worked 7:30 to 5:30 every day. And so learning how to deal with having kids and never having time for myself, it just didn't happen. And so I turned to wine.
Yeah.
And it became a nightly ritual. And again, it just started slow, right? I think for so many people, it's just this very slow progression. And you may be like I was, where on the weekends, like I was a binge drinker. Let's get it on. Let's forget about all of this stuff going on in my life. And let's just do this, right? There was no moderation. If I was going to moderate, like, to me, it was like, what's the point? Why would anyone want to do that?
Exactly. Like, I didn't want to just have one. I wanted to get drunk, right?
Yes.
Like, I also wanted to escape. So it was, for me, it was a medication on a fun side. Can I ask, did your husband drink? Like, were you guys drinking buddies?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what my husband and I did too. We were like drinking buddies. So it was like, I mean, in hindsight, I realized I was the instigator, right? Like I didn't realize how much I instigated until I was on the other side of this. And while he's a big drinker, he can like take it or leave it. I never could. So
for sure. Exactly. I mean, exact same scenario, right? Our lifestyle and our socializing revolved around drinking, sporting events, going out to bars and watching live music, things like that. Like everything we did in our friend group, it revolved around drinking.
Yeah.
And so in 2019, fast forward, 2019, I was 42. I, just slow progression of the alcohol in my life. I had started my own business, started it as a side gig, built it into my full-time job, and slowly started, seeing that, okay, what was 1 glass of wine is now 2 or 3 on the weekends. What was 2 glasses of wine is now a bottle. Like, again, just this very slow progression, and having stress and being an anxiety-ridden person in the first place, and then just not knowing how to deal with it, not having coping mechanisms. And so I turned to wine. And 2019, January, I was hosting an event for spray tanner. So my business is spray tanning, sunless tanning. And I hosted the only conference in the world for spray tanners. I was just the only person who was dumb enough to do this. So I started that organization in 2000.
You say dumb enough, I say brave enough.
Yeah, well, it ended up like destroying me, but it was my aha moment too, you know. But I started it in 2015. By 2019, I was hosting this event for, you know, hundreds of people across the country and the world would come to Las Vegas where I hosted the event. And there was a night where I think I had one glass of wine. This moment had nothing to do with alcohol, and it had everything to do with the fact that I did not sleep. I ate terrible. I just didn't take care of myself for years leading up to that. And my nervous system said, we're done. We're done. And I will never forget, I was laying on the bathroom floor of my hotel room, and it was like an out-of-body experience. I've had plenty of panic attacks in my life. It was a panic attack on steroids. It was insane. Yeah. And literally could not function for a full 24 hours. Couldn't get out of bed to go host my own event. Thankfully, I had people there who stepped in and executed. But that was my moment of clarity. That was my moment of, okay, this is much bigger than you think it is. And you can't just keep living like this. But I didn't know then what the fix was. I just knew that something had to change. I knew that alcohol probably had something to do with it, but nobody was talking about sobriety then. Like that was only 5 years ago. And the way the conversation has changed around alcohol in the last 5 years is 180.
Yeah. I mean, to the moon, really, because it was just never talked about. Let me ask you, Shonna, did you have, well, two questions. One is, did you feel bad about drinking?
Yeah.
Like, did you know you shouldn't at one point or another?
I don't know that I ever knew I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I really believed that I could moderate, right? That I could be that take it or leave it person. And I didn't really understand why I would go into situations and intend to have one glass of wine and it always became a bottle. But I could not in 2019 fathom my life without alcohol.
No. Yeah. I mean,
because it was just such an it was a part of my identity.
Did anybody say anything to you? I think that's one of the questions that people have. Like, was this your decision or somebody else's decision? Nobody ever said anything to me. I mean, ever. Yeah. Nobody ever said anything.
When you hang out with people who are drinking on the same level as you, they tend to not want you to change. Or a version of you that they know and identify with. And so you changing, they think says something about them.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, I mean, I actually just had this conversation with my husband on a walk yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that he has now significantly cut back on his drinking. And I said, you know, something that I've been thinking about recently is how he always used to say to me, like, I would be hungover on a Sunday, laying on the couch, just feeling like poo, you know, and not get off the couch all day. And he would be like, I cannot believe you are 40 years old and you have not figured out how to feel better the day after you drink. Because I was not the girl who would like party and throw up in the toilet and then feel great the next day.
When you're talking about hangovers.
Yeah, I was literally just like dead to the world after a night of binging. And like you said, your husband Justin is very much a take it or leave it drinker, likes to party, but he could just drink and maintain a certain level of buzz or whatever and never hit that point where he's just gone.
Yeah.
And so I was like, but how ironic that like, that was kind of, I think, his way of letting me know that this wasn't working for me. Yeah. Without him coming out and saying, hey, like, hey, have you ever thought about this?
Yeah.
You know? But I think he also was concerned, just like I was when I quit, when I made the decision for me and made it an empowered decision to say, I'm going to be sober. I was scared to death what it would do to my marriage. And I think he also probably had those concerns of if my wife was drinking, then what does our life look like?
There are significant fears that I had for decades. One was my relationship. right? Like if I don't drink, what does that make us anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we did. Where are all my friends going to go? Because that was my entire social life was wrapped up in drinking. What am I going to do with my time now that I'm not drinking, right? Like I'm going to be bored. There's going to be nothing to do. I mean, those are the big three for me. Where like any other ones hit for you. I mean, those are big enough, right? To me,
I think that's
your social life. Also, I had no other way to cope with anything, right? Like happy, sad, excited, elated, grieving. I mean, I had no other way to cope with anything. So I'm also giving up my medication. So I didn't realize it really at the time how significant that was. I'm curious, because that is such a fear. Tell me how it's changed your relationship, if it has, with your husband.
So I quit. I decided my day one was January 1, 2020. I had no idea what was coming 2 months later, right? And I don't know. I think initially for me, it was very like, okay, I did Annie Grace's live alcohol experiment and connected with a lot of people all over the world who were kind of going through this 30-day program the same time as me. And I would say maybe 2% of us stayed sober from that, right?
I mean, also it's New Year's resolution. So I mean,
exactly. And I had done,
nobody does that.
I had been doing dry January every year for like 5 years.
Okay.
So to me, dry January was like, prove to myself that I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
We're going to go 30 days with, if I can willpower my way through 30 days of this, then I don't have a problem with alcohol.
Yeah. And I never thought I had a problem because I didn't drink while I was pregnant. So I've had 2 kids, right? So I didn't drink pregnant. So I was like, well, obviously I don't have a problem then that you don't drink when you're pregnant, right? Like there's something bigger. Anyway.
Yeah. So then for me on January 2nd, actually, I had my first Reiki session ever. And this woman came to my house and did Reiki on me. And I knew after that session that I would never drink again. On January 1, it was still I'm going to do this 30-day program. I'm going to figure out how to moderate.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day after my Reiki session, I just knew like, this has to be it for me. I am not a take it or leave it drinker. I am an all or nothing drinker. And
do you find yourself to be an all or nothing person?
Yes.
Yeah. I can't even remember when I heard this or where I heard it. It doesn't really matter. But I remember somebody saying along my life path, I don't moderate anything in my life. Yeah. Why should I expect to moderate an addictive substance? Like, why should I expect to have this one thing in moderation in my life? Because I don't moderate anything. I'm passionate and balls to the wall about everything in my life. It's odd to think that I would be able to moderate this one thing.
Exactly.
Which is not meant to be moderated, by the way. Right?
Sure.
Like, I don't love getting into the Annie Grace, who I love, and I'll put her information in the session notes. I've read all of her books and I've done all of I didn't do the workshops and stuff like that, but I really loved what she has to say. I love her message. I love everything about it. She gets pretty down and dirty into the science of it. And some people love that. And I do love it. Society isn't really ready to accept that alcohol is an addictive substance, right? Like we are expecting that people should control it when chemically it's not meant to do that, right? Like I used to drink 7 or 8 glasses of wine. I can hardly drink 7 or 8 glasses of water.
Right.
I mean, literally, I have a smart water bottle like that tells me how many I have to drink throughout the day. Very rarely do I drink 8. I would very easily drink 8 glasses of wine because chemically it's ready for you to have another one. In any case, I say I'm not going to get into that. Sometimes I do. But yeah, that part is, I don't moderate anything. I don't moderate my businesses. I don't moderate my love, my relationships, my personal development, my exercise, my food, like just
all or nothing.
It's just not who I am. And I think we find more people like that. Right? Like more and more people that have quit drinking are very, very black and white people. I think I'm trying to teach myself consistency and, that's one of the things I'm really working on, but it's pretty true, I think, of a lot of us. And then we expect ourselves to moderate because that's what society does.
Correct.
And I would have loved to be that person. I would
Me too.
be able to pick up and put down a red glass of wine at dinner. I would. I really would. I'm not. I'm just
Well,
not that person. And now I don't care at all. Right. Like, I mean, now I have
I could
no
care less.
interest.
Right.
And same with me. My story is similar. I didn't hit a rock bottom. I say a lot of the times I like skipped along the bottom for a while. I was at my husband's 40th birthday party. I drank all day long. I wasn't obnoxious. It was not like a rock bottom. It was, I got a ride home, and I mean, I woke up the next day and I was like, I am done. I am never, ever doing this again. And I haven't. But for me, it has to be a hard no. I cannot do a maybe. I can't do just one. I just like, once I just accepted it, like
liberating.
It's so freeing. I have a sign in my office that says 99% is torture and 100% is bliss. Like,
true.
And for me, it was just a decision. I just like decided. I just like, no more. I can't do it. I mean, I've done that about a lot of things. So it sounds like you had the same epiphany, right? Like, I'm just done.
You know, simultaneously, I was also listening to James Clear, Atomic Habits, you know, and he talks a lot about choosing your identity. And I had always identified as a party girl. Like, I am a party girl. And I decided on January 2nd, I am going to identify as a sober person. And I think sober is a word that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people who are alcohol free or whatever. But to me, sobriety meant I am freeing myself from any and every substance. Because a lot of people, like California sober, right? So especially with our country and the laws around marijuana relaxing, a lot of people are they're turning from alcohol to marijuana.
Yeah.
It's still an escape. It's still a way to not deal with your problems.
Mm-hmm.
And with the things that are living inside you and growing that will ultimately take you out.
Yeah.
And as a highly sensitive person with a very sensitive nervous system, you know, again, all things that I've learned about myself over the last 4 years, but I feel everything big. And so for me, you know, the thought of smoking something or taking a gummy or something to still just numb down that experience and those big emotions and those big feelings, that's no different than using alcohol or wine to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I decided that I was going to claim sobriety as a positive, not as, oh, look at her, the girl over there in the corner who has a problem and is not like any of us, and we can all moderate. No one in my life, let's be honest, no one in my life was moderating. Very few.
Yeah, and I also didn't surround myself with people that did, because it also gave me a green light.
Right.
Got my inevitable permission slip to be drinking as much as I wanted to, as long as I was around people that were drinking as much as they wanted to, right?
Exactly.
Like, and I'm not saying that that's good or bad or whatever. I also changed my mindset around sobriety, and I think that's why it's been such a positive experience for me. I very much like you claim sobriety. I do not identify as an alcoholic. I knew it was no longer serving me in any way. I knew that I was using it as an escape and a coping mechanism. And I basically just got sick of it. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I knew that there were some feelings underneath there that I didn't deal with, that I had to. And the only way I was going to do that is to clear the shit. And for me, the shit was alcohol. For somebody else, it might be shopping. For somebody else, it might be smoking. For some
food.
For me, it was alcohol. And it was just the tippy top of whatever it was. And the rest of it has just like fallen into place. And I knew it in my soul that if I could just get this one thing, if I could just quit that one thing, the rest of it would fall into place. I just knew it.
And it's funny you say that about the different ways we numb ourselves, because kind of my catalyst to being like, okay, alcohol is the thing I have to change. Even after laying on a freaking bathroom floor in Las Vegas 6 months earlier, I was still drinking. And I had a moment backstage with my favorite band, and the lead singer of that favorite band. And he'd been sober for 11 years. And he was talking very vulnerably about his sobriety in this moment. And he said, I was a junkie and my drugs of choice were alcohol and pills. And it was something about that. Actually, he said, I am a junkie. Like he claimed that as like, this is inside me. This is who I am. And I have to regulate that. Right. And in that moment, that sentence just landed in me. There were a lot of other people in that room. And that sentence had no effect on anybody else in that room. But for me, it was this moment of clarity where I was like, well, I'm a freaking junkie too, but wine and food are my coping mechanism. Those are what I'm a junkie for. And it's two things that happen to be socially acceptable to consume, too much of.
Yeah. Especially as a woman.
For sure.
Like it is everybody's like, it's fine. Just eat ice cream when you feel sad or drink
wine to deal with your kids.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And again, I always like want to put a disclaimer out there. Like you do you, I'm going to do me.
Sure.
Like whatever. I don't really care. However, I also want to offer an option of this doesn't have to be the way it's done. Mm-hmm. And you could talk about it in a normal way. And you don't have to be a junkie in order to change, right? Correct. Like when I say highly functioning, I mean, you always hear like highly functioning alcoholic. Okay, fine. Like
highly functioning everything.
Yeah, you want to label me that way? That's totally cool. If you want to call me an alcoholic because I don't drink anymore, right, and that's the only way you believe that works, right, that's totally fine. I don't really care. It's not how I look at myself, so it doesn't really matter to me anymore. But I was highly functioning hungover every day. Yeah. Highly functioning.
Yeah, I had a very successful business.
Yes. Also, I was using that as an escape, right? Like the busier I was, the less I had to. I mean, really, now I'm still highly functioning, but at such a level that it's like acceptable for me, an appropriate amount of functioning. And like, I'm also not trying to please everybody. I mean, that part has changed so much. But to be functioning, it's very hard for people to understand that you have a problem when you're still getting up and running businesses and getting your kids to school and doing all the things from the outside look fine. But correct, for me, it was not fine, right? Like I was done being not fine. I wasn't even fine anymore.
Right. And in that moment, that was a conversation that happened in June of 2019. And from there out through the end of 2019, I would say I really did moderate my drinking. For the first time in my adult life. I would have a glass of wine out at dinner. I would buy a bottle of wine on the weekend and drink one bottle of wine over the weekend at home. But that forced the conversation within myself and with myself of, why do I still think I need this at all? What is in me that's saying you cannot live your life without this?
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, Shonna, when you started to moderate for that, like 6 months, did you feel very white knuckled?
Yeah. Yes. You're controlling it. You're just saying, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. And for me, it was just an examination process that needed to happen in this journey for me. And I remember, funny enough, in November of 2019, it was the end of November, and went to see the same band, and I drank way more that day and that night than I had drank in the previous 5 months, because I couldn't imagine going and seeing them and not drinking, like not making this whole big production out of it, taking the afternoon off work and going and pre-gaming and going out to dinner with our friends. And then, all of these things. And the funny thing is, like, I was so excited to tell that guy how what he said had affected me. But here I am, like, half slurring my words when I'm having a conversation with him. The next day I was just like, what the hell? Like, okay. So I knew that, like, I had white knuckled it. I had controlled my surroundings so much. I hadn't changed my thoughts around alcohol. I still thought that alcohol was providing something for me in my life. It was providing a positive, and it was something that I couldn't imagine my life without. So I just kept drinking and controlling it. And I think it was part of the alcohol experiment process. And it was very much about identity, and simultaneously listening to Atomic Habits talk about identity. And I just decided in January of 2020, like, I am sober, period. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. And this is who I'm going to be. And I waited 100 days to put it out there to the world. But I did that for the accountability, frankly.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was like, okay, I made it 100 days. That felt astronomical to me at that time. Like, could not believe that I did that. And then I decided, but I could start to see the positives it was bringing. I hit 100 days in the middle of a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah. Like early on.
Right. Where my business had just been shut down. Like when I'm crossing 100 days, my business is shut down. I cannot work. I have no income. All of these things.
For a reason to drink, right?
Everything was falling apart, right? Like at that point, we didn't know if we were going to get any sort of assistance. I knew nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just over here floating around. And I remember my birthday is March 31st. So very close to 100 days at that point. I sat on the couch and watched CNN all day. New York City, this is back when Cuomo was having his daily press conferences and all of that. And I just sobbed through the entire day. I was so depressed, but I felt it.
Yeah.
And that was a profound moment for me to sit there and actually feel like, what is happening? This is scary. Nobody knows what's going on. How many people are going to die? Like, as an empath and a highly sensitive person, like, my brain goes a million different directions. But sitting there in that moment and saying, I'm going to feel this and I'm not going to numb this, that was a profound moment for me. And so it wasn't, it was maybe a week later that I hit 100 days and I put it out there on social media. And I just said, I have claimed this for myself. But again, I looked at it as accountability also. If I put this out there to my, 1,000 friends on Facebook and my approximately 1,000 followers on Instagram, there's going to be a lot of people watching. And when you've never seen a photo of Shonna that didn't have her holding a drink, and so I knew if you put it out there, now everybody's going to be waiting for you to mess up.
100%. Yeah.
And so how are we going to handle that? And I just stepped into it. I stepped into the identity and said, this is who I am. And I'm not going to be ashamed of it, because I look around and I know just from my circle of friends that there are a lot of people in this world who have issues with alcohol, and it's just not talked about.
Yeah.
And, I also had a lot of people in my life who had problems, who had gone to rehab, who are in AA, who are in recovery. And that was a great thing for them. But I also know enough about myself to know I was never going to walk into a room with people and stand up in front of them and say, hi, my name is Shonna and I'm an alcoholic, because I didn't feel that way about myself.
Yeah.
So I had to find something that I did identify with and that felt empowering to me.
Yeah.
Instead of being a victim to alcohol, I am choosing to live a life without alcohol. And that is empowering.
I could not have said that any better. There are so many ways to get sober or quit drinking or whatever language you want to put around it. Maybe it's changed right now, right? Like there's a different, even 5 years ago, you were either in recovery, which meant you were always an alcoholic and you are powerless. You're in a 12-step program, or you're in full-on rehab. Nobody made a choice to do it. That was the perception. I'm not saying nobody made a choice. Because lots of people have made this choice. But one of my fears was, well, everybody's going to know I have a problem. Guess what? Everybody already knew I had a problem. Right?
Right.
Also walking around as the problem. So, and I had also done like a 90-day stint. I had made it 90 days because I was accountable. I started on January 1st of 2018, did 90 days, blogged about it every day, had the accountability, and the accountability saved me. Honest to God. You know, and then of course I went very quickly back into my old habits. It got worse, actually.
I fulfilled my obligation.
Yeah,
look at me. Look at all these great things I did. Now I'm going to go ruin it all.
I don't have a problem. But, you know, if you like need to take a 90-day stint, it's sort of a red flag, right? Like, or a yellow flag, at least. Like, if you feel like you need to take a 90-day stint from it altogether, there might be a reason you need to do that. For me, the accountability, like you said, like when I put it out there, and the second time I did it, the time that I knew, so I did it the first time for 90 days, went back to drinking and, you know, whatever. But I had fulfilled my obligation to my followers. And, you know, I was like, it's fine. It's fine to drink again. It got worse for me in the end. Like it got to a point where I was drinking at home. I only wanted to drink at home because nobody would judge me for how much I was drinking. You know, like that snowball goes down the hill pretty fast for me. But the accountability for me. So when I have decided I'm not drinking anymore ever again. I've made that decision in my head. I didn't share it until 90 days. Right. And I had already known that I was never going to go back. But I was like, if I'm going to tell people I'm never going back on social media where I find my accountability, I've got to be real certain.
For sure. That was exactly how I felt.
Yeah. And I needed it. And 90 days was a big deal to me. 100 days was like magic for me. I don't know why. I don't like people ask all the time, like, how long does it take to get to like the euphoria, the pink cloud, the, you know, blah, blah, blah. I think it's different for everyone. 100 days has definitely floated out there as the big deal, right? I consider like 100 days was a big deal for me because I never freaking thought I'd make it one day, much less 100. I still celebrate days, right? Like I just surpassed my 1,000th. I don't count. I still have a counter on my phone. I don't count and I have to look it up a lot.
Right.
But there is something to be said about those days. And like, look how far I've come. Does it look like that every single day? No. Right. But I know. And I know how I feel. And 1,000 days is a big deal to me because so much has changed. And subtle changes, right? Like nobody lives your life. So you don't know what it's like to be at home, be inside me and be inside like, oh my God, my nervous system is completely chill. Like, like
regulated
% of the time.
What is that? What's a regulated nervous system? What? I can sleep.
My sleep. And I was like, you know, getting up once or twice a night to pee, or I would wake up at 3:00 and never get back to sleep. Like 2:32.
That was me. Yep.
I would, and there's some science behind this, right? Like, now there's like your adrenaline wears off basically. And then everything just like shoots straight through the roof and wakes you up. And you're like, oh my God, I can't stop my head.
And what's funny is for years, I called that entrepreneur brain. I really thought I was waking up in the middle of the night because I would wake up and think about my business.
Yeah.
But I really thought like, oh, this is all because I'm stressed out from trying to grow this business.
Yeah.
I never considered or even knew again. And that's why I think that Annie's program was good for me because learning the science behind that, I was like, wait, this is what the last decade has really been about. Yeah. And I thought all this time I was just a stressed out business owner.
Yeah. I mean, now that I'm on the other side of this, my business ownership is lovely. Right? Like I don't ever wake up. I don't wake up with stress in my business. I don't wake up ever, to be honest. Like I was having sleeping problems. I knew it was because I was drinking, you know, after I had like read enough about it. Then I figured it out and I was like, no, it's going to be different tonight.
Right.
It never, ever was.
Never.
But also after that, like first 10 days of when you feel like the Mack truck hit you for 10 days of like the first 10 days are really rough. Just anything is out there that's never quit drinking. I'm telling you, the first 10 days is not what the rest of it feels like.
Exactly. You got to
The
grind
first
through
10
that.
days sucks so bad. But like, if you can get on the other side of 10 days, my sleep is like orgasmic. I hit the pillow and I never wake up until the sun comes up. I rise and set with the sun. I don't have any sleep problems. It is lovely. I love to go to bed.
Me too. I love going to bed
Oh
early.
man, this is
I
going to
love
be so
everybody think I'm
fast.
such an old lady. I don't care. Like, I embrace the old lady lifestyle. I see everything great about being an old lady and going to bed
100%.
early.
Yep.
Yeah, for instance, this weekend, I'm going to Dallas to see the band I was referencing. Their show doesn't start until 10:15 p.m.
Oh.
And I was like, do you know how many iced coffees I'm going to have Friday
In order to
afternoon?
do that and to sleep, like maybe wake me up at 9 p.m. to go.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, actually. Like, could you just, like, I'll go to bed around 7. You wake me up. We'll head over to Billy Bob's. And then we'll go back and
I'm taking my family to see Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks. And I was like, well, the good news is that they're way older than me. So the show starts at 7. I'm probably going to be home and in bed by like 10:30. It's going to be
Amen. That's the best. But that's how my lifestyle has changed, right? Like, I just don't go places that I'm going to need to be out, generally speaking. Yeah. I don't go places that I'm going to need to be out late because to me, my daily life and my routine is so good and so beautiful and it works so well for me. Every day is the same, frankly. Yeah. Weekends don't matter. Holidays don't matter. You know, I'm lucky enough that my business has grown in a way that I was able to retire my husband from his corporate job in 2022. And so our days every day are the same. It's wake with no alarm. You know, whenever your body says we've had enough sleep, you get up. We've become very conscious about our health. It's how we spend our money now, frankly, is on our health. And so, you know, we go to the gym a few times a week. We walk 4 to 5 miles every single day. You know, all of these things. And it's just a day in and day out thing. And I never want to break from my life. Yeah. My life is really beautiful. And I couldn't have imagined saying that before I quit drinking.
No, the escape part was something for me too, right? Like I could also tell when I started to look for travel, right? Like when I started I could tell I wanted to escape my life. And then I would go somewhere and I'd come back and my life would still be.
Hey, nothing has changed.
Nothing's changed except now I have more work and I'm also hungover and I'm, 10 pounds heavier, all the things.
And one thing my husband said right before he left his corporate career, and it was our last trip before he left. And he said, I spent the last 3 days dreading going back to work. So I didn't even enjoy the second half of my vacation because all I was thinking about is what's my life going to look like when I get back home?
Yeah. Right.
What am I going back to?
More. Yeah. Right. That's how I feel about Mondays every Monday now. Right. Like I talk about Monday a lot. Yeah. And yes, it's a week, it's a day, it's, but it is such a barometer for me about how content I am because I used to loathe Mondays. Yeah. And I feel like it's an indicator of like, if you hate Mondays, you're trying to escape all weekend long. Yep. And then of course you have like Sunday scaries. I didn't even know what that phrase was. I definitely don't have a Sunday scary, right? Like I literally wake up on Mondays and I'm like super excited, right? I plan all my favorite things on Mondays now, right? Like I love Mondays. I'd love to get into how much your business has changed. Right? We might have to have a part 2 of this. Yeah. I would love to hear about like how much your business has changed, how much you equate that to sobriety. And also there's something to be said about sobriety. Don't get me wrong. But for me, it was just the catalyst.
For sure.
It was the catalyst into taking care of myself and real self-care, not like Doritos and a bottle of red wine in a bubble bath. Like that's not self-care. Self-care to me is like doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, financial meetings, things like paying attention to your expenses, paying attention to your staffing. Like, tell me how that's all changed for you.
I think for me, what it did was it gave me clarity and it gave me confidence. And I felt like once I was able to conquer alcohol, which I saw as the biggest stumbling block in my life, I had confidence that I could do anything. Anything I could dream of could be my reality. At the time, I was working in my business. I was doing spray tans. And now COVID forced me out. And so it shut us down. And I brought my staff back first because I was like, they don't have, we had some money in savings. My husband's working the whole time, from home. Yeah. So at that point, he's still in his corporate job. So we had some stability. And frankly, then I wasn't paying myself a ton. I had created a job for myself, not so much a business. I wasn't really
a job.
I was an operator, not an owner, right? But bringing them back and then sort of like reverse engineering myself out of the business. So, okay, wait, we're making a little bit of money here. I'm paying them. There's still enough money for me to pay myself a little bit. Okay, like if I lean into this, what does this look like? And so I went back, I went from doing spray tans 5 to 6 days a week to doing spray tans like 1, maybe 2 days a week.
Did you have one studio at that point?
At that point in 2020, I had one studio, 3-room studio. I had 4 employees.
Okay.
And all were part-time. I had literally transferred one of those girls to become full-time the week we got shut down. So my first full-time employee got shut down 2 days after we had just done a renovation on our studio, unveiled it all that Monday, and on Thursday we were shut down. So it was
great. Yeah.
The timing was impeccable.
So many lessons.
Yeah. But, again, the clarity that was coming with not drinking and just clouding up my brain every day and overloading my nervous system. At the same time, I'm going to therapy. I'm doing energy modalities like Reiki. I did hypnotherapy. I've tried a million different modalities of therapy to find what works for me. And so just all of these things slowly started to build into a life and a lifestyle for me that I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so now we're kind of coming into our slow season. This is a test. And it was freaking 2020. Nobody's going anywhere. And let's be honest, spray tanning it's a special occasion thing for the vast majority of people. So they're getting one before they go on a vacation, a wedding, a big event, whatever. Well, none of those things are happening. Yeah. But then I was like, you know what? Winter of 2020, I had a girlfriend. She was opening a new salon. And she's like, hey, I have this space. You could kind of like start a second location. Why not? I just am crazy enough to do that shit.
And COVID.
So I leased a space from her and said, okay, we opened that in March of 2021. I worked there to get it up and going, hired someone who kind of took it over. And the next thing I know, like, I just am not working in my business anymore. It wasn't necessarily like okay, this is how I'm going to do it. Now I can take a step back and say, this is how I did it. And these are the decisions. But along the way, I don't think I really had sight of what was going to happen long term. I dreamed of having time as an asset.
Oh, I love that.
And that was my big dream. Time, not necessarily money.
Yeah.
And so I started engineering my life and intentionally building my life for that. And that is what I have today. I work maybe 4 hours a week on my business. I have a staff who now we have 2 brick and mortar locations. I have staff who run those locations. I took a 3-month sabbatical in 2022, did not work on my business one day for 3 months, and everything just kept going and I kept getting paid. But then that led to a whole other slew of problems of who am I without that business as my identity, right?
Oh, right. Then the identity crisis comes again.
Yeah. But, I think that sobriety gave me clarity, but the biggest thing it gave me was confidence.
Yeah.
And when you believe in yourself and when you believe in your ability to take control of your life and build your life with intention, nothing can stop you. You will figure it out.
Yeah.
And
just
that's
real honest.
Yeah. And when you deal with the shit,
Yeah.
because we all have stuff. And instead of just trying to suppress it, numb it, make it go away, if you're doing the things you need to do to deal with it, for me now, it's like walking outside every day. That is my mental health walk.
Yeah.
Like, it's when I do my best thinking about my business. It's when I do my best thinking 100%. About myself. And just doing hard things.
Yeah.
You know? And as you do hard things, you gain confidence.
Yeah.
Right? As you are successful in those things. So now I feel pretty much unstoppable. It's like whatever I decide to do, I know I'm going to be successful at because I'm going to freaking figure it out. My brain just yeah, I know. I used to be so afraid, like my business is going to collapse. I'm going to end up in a van by the river, all of these things. That's where my brain would go. And now today it's like, you know what? Even if everything got taken away from me tomorrow, I still have the same brain that built all of this.
Yeah.
And it made this life. And I could do it again.
I'm going to cry.
And so it's just the confidence that comes with that and those experiences. And that's not to say every day is freaking peachy, because I had a freaking mental breakdown in March when I was in the middle of this second build out and this new brick and mortar, and it cost twice as much as we thought it was going to. And all my old money issues, all the 20-something Shonna money issues came flying in. And I had to do like some trauma therapy around this stuff and mistakes I made in the past that were just still living inside me and giving me a lot of shame and a lot of self-doubt. And so I had to clear those things out of me to be able to successfully move forward and say, what's done is done. Yeah. And now you've got more debt. You're going to be just fine. Yeah. Right. And so it's recognizing those things and understanding what is making you feel the way you're feeling, if it's a negative feeling or even a positive feeling, so that you can reinforce those positive feelings like confidence, or you can learn to eliminate. You will never eliminate all negative feelings. No, you just have to figure out how to manage them.
Yeah, you just get stronger, right? Yeah. Like you get more of what you need if you're not like shoving it under the bed all the time.
Right. And that's, I think, so much of, you asked me earlier about white knuckling sobriety. And if you're white knuckling it, your chances of being successful are slim to none.
Yeah.
If you're just constantly fighting yourself, you may be able to do it for months or even years. Yeah. Watch people white knuckle it for years.
Oh,
and then
it's so sad.
It just takes one thing, right? But when you embrace this lifestyle and say, you know what, let's see how good this can be. Instead of all that focusing on all the things it's going to take away from your life, focus on all the things it's going to bring to your life. Like we were talking about orgasmic sleep, right? You have no idea how sleep affects you.
Yeah.
And affects your mood and your mental stability and everything until you are getting great sleep.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, this is what this is about.
And that is what has made my husband completely cut back on his drinking.
Yeah.
Because he started tracking his sleep with an app on his watch. And he sees exactly what happens to his sleep on the evenings where he has even one glass of whiskey, or bourbon, or a couple beers in the afternoon. He's seen how tiny of alcohol consumption, amount of alcohol consumption, what that does to his deep sleep versus his, in his restful sleep. All of this, I think people learning more about sleep, we're learning way more about it. People learning more about that and the effects of alcohol on sleep, I think that's going to be what revolutionizes the sober curious movement. And it's already happening.
Yeah, the alcohol companies aren't telling you that that's why you have shitty sleep. Like
Yeah.
that's not what they're doing, right? Like
Right.
big alcohol is still trying to sell alcohol, and they're not going to give you all the scientific shit about,
Right.
the stuff
When
and
it's
how it
terrible for you.
affects us.
It's
Yeah,
poison.
that it's horrible for you. What's next for Shonna? Big, hairy, audacious, crazy goal
Oh,
that you're obviously going to achieve.
I am launching a new coaching community for my industry in July. I'm still figuring out what shape that takes, but being a perfectionist or like an all or nothing person, like I've always been like, okay, it has to be perfect before. No, I'm done with that. Like, we're just going to put it out there and we're going to figure it out as we go. We did this a little bit in the winter. And so I'm just going to kind of continue on with that. I figured out, I love helping women in my industry take control of their lives and their businesses and stop just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And let's really be intentional about this.
Yeah.
I went and got my life coaching certification last year too, because I know that your business should support your life, support the lifestyle that you want. And so many of us, we just never get there.
Yeah, I've said this a number of times, especially as small business owners, entrepreneurs, however you want to call, whatever you want to call yourself. There is such a blurred line between professional and personal lives.
No, it's the same thing.
If it exists at all for women. And so there isn't, to me, like I also have decided to just I'm just a life coach, right? Like if you have a small business, that's cool.
We can talk about that. Yeah.
I'm definitely in for that. And I will definitely give you all the pointers. But until you deal with what's inside you, you are never, ever going to achieve what you think you're going to achieve. Like it's not enough to want it. You have to figure out, peel back all the layers and figure out what's at the deep depths of your worthiness soul before you ever get this. And so many of us at this age, I think, are we struggle with worthiness and what is our value and what is our purpose. Until you start to value yourself, there just is no room for you to achieve anything. And I would go to the mat with somebody that has said, it doesn't matter how you feel about yourself, you can achieve. I will go to the mat with you, and you might be able to do it for a while, but longevity is not on your side. So anyway,
and I think for me, growing my business from one person to now 25 employees, from my basement to 2 brick and mortar locations, part-time to, now back to very part-time, but I've had every iteration over the last 13 years of what a small business could be. And especially in my industry, it's such a unique industry. And so I really want to help people in my industry just kind of take my blueprint and adjust it to fit their business and their desired lifestyle and teach them the things, because most of it, we didn't go to business school. We spray tans on people because it makes them feel good. It makes us feel good when they feel good, but we don't know anything about business. And so those are all the things I've had to learn myself over 13 years. And so then just bringing those people, those resources, and then throwing in a lot of the lifestyle stuff, because I just I believe the same as you. If you aren't dealing with your daily life, if you're not happy in your daily life, or at minimum content in your daily life, your business is never going to fix it.
Shonna, where can people find you if they are interested in reaching out? I'm assuming that's okay with you.
Yeah. So I'm just on Instagram, Shonna, which is SHONNA_Dexter. That's my main personal account. I'm very vulnerable, open on that account. I tell it like it is. When I'm going through shit, everybody in my world knows. And because I just also, especially in midlife, I think you find confidence, but you also start to understand that everybody's going through stuff. And, if I can be a light for someone, if I can, the number of people who have said, you have contributed to me making the decision to quit drinking, that is worth every vulnerable share times 1,000,000 to me.
Yep.
And so I I'm a very vulnerable person. Like I'm willing to be vulnerable for the greater good.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to put out there is just really positive, but real.
Yeah. I mean, life gets lifey sometimes.
It does. And it doesn't matter how much work you've done on yourself or how sober you are. Things are going to be hard from time to time. You know?
It's really a mindset shift though. Like, how are we looking at these things?
Yeah, just accepting it, and radical acceptance is a great thing too.
I love that you were here. I love that we got to meet. I sent Shonna a message, I don't know what, a couple months ago, and I was like, "You're in Kansas City, right? It's like $50 for me to fly there." So I definitely
come and do it sometime.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I think that that's my travel goal. I did discover that I don't really love to travel except for to go and see people, right? Because I used it for an escape forever. Yeah. And now I'm like, I want to travel, but I like just want to go and see people I know. So I'm coming to Kansas City.
Connecting with people it's everything for me. And the way my friend group and my connections have changed since I quit drinking, you know, again, whole nother podcast, but
that's a part 2, and we're going to get there. I promise. I'm definitely going to have you back because I really would love to hear more about the business itself. And I love to hear about how people's relationships have changed because I think that's like everybody's biggest fear, right? And yes, my relationships have changed. They just do. They're meant to, right? Like we're meant to grow and expand and do all those things. So, but I also get to meet people like you, right? Like,
amen.
And this is like, I just think that we are meant to cross paths with people when it's the right time. And this has been almost a 5-year journey for us. And here we are. So thank you so much. I love everything about this. So I'm just going to stop the recording quick. And that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of living authentically with me. Before you go, don't forget to connect with me on Instagram. Shoot me a message at Katie Rip. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode and connect with you further. And remember, if you want more details on today's episode or just want to explore more about designing your life unapologetically, head on over to my website at katierip.com. There you'll find all the juicy details and resources you need to keep the inspiration flowing. Lastly, if you'd like to join me on the show, whether it's to tell about your experience of designing your own life, to share your expertise, or if you'd like to participate in lifestyle coaching live on air, don't hesitate to reach out. Your story could inspire countless others on their own path to living authentically. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep living boldly, designing your life, and remember, #actually I can.